Okay, so today we have to talk about what we learned from Ohio State's win against Penn State and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's college football, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about number 2 Ohio State beating number 8 Penn State. And what does that mean for, well, Ohio State Buckeyes going forward and the rest of college football? This is the first game for which we saw Ohio State look not necessarily just tested, but kind of have a meltdown. Because while the opening two drives, honestly, made it look like Ohio State was every bit the juggernaut that I still believe that they are. Because you stopped Penn State from doing much of anything to open, and then you drove 91 yards without a single passing yard to score the opening touchdown. Justin Fields, J.K. Dobbins were awesome in that drive. And for the most of the first half, that's exactly how it looked. It looked like Ohio State very much in control on senior day. Justin Fields operating like he knows how to operate. You understood that they were going to go at this really highly rated rush defense that the Nittany Lions possess and go at this number 1, or first round draft pick on the defensive line, guys like Michael Parsons back there, and try to impose their will with this outstanding offensive line they had. And of course, we all know that J.K. Dobbins is one of the best running backs in all of college football, and he looked the part. I mean, at one point, J.K. Dobbins had rushed for more yardage than K.J. Hamler had in return yardage, and K.J. Hamler had 2 opportunities to return football, right? It's 39 yards in returns, and of course, J.K. Dobbins had 56 yards rushing at the time to round out what I'm getting at. But at the start of the third quarter, it very much looked like, Ohio State's in control. They go up 21-0 with about 12 minutes and change left to play in the third quarter, and then the drive chart starts to show you what the Nittany Lions are made of, and more to the point, we saw more of what Justin Fields was doing and more of what J.K. Dobbins was doing that we didn't want to see. Both Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins probably need to join Jalen Hurts in Ball Security 101 because Justin Fields did a Jalen Hurts thing when he fumbled the ball going across the goal line, and it ends up in the Nittany Lions' hands in the first half. And then we see J.K. Dobbins do not unlike a really awful thing where the backup quarterback ends up scoring on a QB draw for the Nittany Lions. But Chase Young and that defense were able to stand firm and hold pat. Chase Young is now the best pass rusher in Ohio State Buckeyes history. My man has more sacks as an Ohio State Buckeye than Vernon Gholston, than Joey Bosa, than Mike Vrabel. All those guys, with the exception of Vernon Gholston, depending on how you want to look at it, can play some football. Joey Bosa is he is one of the premier pass rushers in football and really is going to push for the best pass rusher in football in just a few years. We all know what that's going to be. Nick Bosa as well is one of those guys. But I wanted to make this more about what the defense that was Ohio State was doing because you saw Jeffrey Kuda, you saw Jordan Fuller have an opportunity to make a pick. He dropped it. You saw that they were where they needed to be, but also Justin Fields was getting a lot of help. Chris Olave made an outstanding catch to go up 28-17 in between 2 defenders. Garrett Wilson is absolutely that dude on the outside. Benjamin Victor, as was pointed out during the broadcast, he's going to make those really difficult catches where Justin Fields just tries to airmail footballs and he's going to drop things that he should probably catch that are routine. But when you looked across the board and you saw Benjamin Victor and Chris Olave and KJ Hill and Austin Mack, you saw what they were working with and they rode J.K. Dobbins and they rode that offensive line to a victory. And then they said to the defense, hey, just hold up your end. And that's what they did, right? I mean, these 17 points are more than we've really used to seeing an Ohio State Buckeyes football team give up. And there are lots of people that had said Ohio State ain't played nobody, for which I would say, look, they're going to be the only team ranked inside the top 10 who has played an FBS team in every single regular season game. Nobody else that's going to make the playoff gets to say that. Not at all. Not even my beloved Oklahoma Sooners, right? Because South Dakota and whatnot. But more than that, Florida Atlantic is a good football team with a winning record. Cincinnati's only loss this season was to Ohio State. Miami of Ohio is a good football team. To start this weekend, they were 6-4. So you saw good football teams that they had played against, and then the Big Ten is whatever the Big Ten is. But Wisconsin at the time, we thought they were really, really good. Michigan State at the time, we thought they were above average to good. And of course, we thought this Penn State team was decent enough, But I had told you all week that I thought that Penn State was going to get curb stomped. And I get the spread is the spread, but it really felt like Ohio State should have won this game 45 to probably 7. You know, it feels like if you don't put the ball on the ground, if you take care of it, you don't give the Nittany Lions more opportunities to feel charged up in Ohio Stadium, you're going to put this game away earlier. But you also have Chase Young. And anytime you have to double team one defensive player, that means that you have other guys that can just go to work on you. Also means you can drop more guys into coverage. Also means that your secondary gets to do what it does best, which is close, right? You get safeties that get to actually watch Sean Clifford's eyes and go track the football because you're using that extra player to block Chase Young instead of having Noah Kane or Journey Brown just kind of flexing out and running wheel routes or getting flats or whatnot, because you can't do that because Chase Young is the predator. He is going to devour your left tackle, your right tackle. You're going to have to figure out where the deuce is, and you're going to have to chip on the deuce, and you're going to have to hope that that's enough to keep him off of Sean Clifford's behind, and it wasn't. And you had other guys that were getting in on the action because Chase Young is such a force. And this is how I end up going back to my argument for Chase Young, not just perhaps being a Heisman finalist, but winning the award. Because I know that Joe Burrow's been outstanding. I know that Jalen Hurts is going to get you like 50 a game in fantasy football. He's going to average 300 and 100. Matter of fact, against TCU, he's going to be a 3,000-yard passer and 1,000-yard rusher with 17 rush yards tonight. He picks up 17 on the ground. He's the first and probably only 3,000, 1,000 guy playing football today, and he's still got an outside chance of getting to 50 total touchdowns this season. Even so, Chase Young is just in a different category unto himself when we're talking about defensive football. I've called him Ndamukong Suh's revenge. You know, he's the first guy that we've actually literally had to consider for the Heisman Trophy since Manti Te'o. And that was like 7 years ago. I know that this is an offensive award. I know that it's basically a quarterback award that's kind of sort of sometimes given to running backs. But what you see from Chase Young is dominance. And that's what Jeff Hafley's defense has been doing up until this point. So will we call this a setback for Ohio State? Certainly not. They beat a top 10 Penn State team that had taken one loss to a one-loss squad in Minnesota, who beat the hell out of Northwestern earlier today, and who took their first loss of the season against Iowa. And Iowa is a good football team that has been pushing most everybody that they've played. They're just not the team you want to see on your schedule because they're going to play defense. They're going to run the ball. You're going to have to break them to beat them. Ohio State didn't break Penn State in the way that we wanted to see Penn State broken, in the way that we expected to see Penn State broken. But we understand that Ohio State is in a stratosphere unto itself when it comes to how good they are at playing defensive football, or that's what we thought. With KJ Hamler, Sean Clifford, Noah Kane, and Journey Brown, you expected them to be able to impose their will defensively, and they weren't able to do that. This is a Michigan team that really looks like it might struggle against Ohio State, and still they play Penn State, and then what happens? They play Notre Dame, and then what happens, right? So Notre Dame ain't very good is what I'm getting at here. But I find it fascinating that we're going to have this conversation about whether or not Ohio State is the number one team, and they're not going to get to number one after this win because they needed to win this game by 25, 30 points to challenge for that number one spot in a week where, frankly, Louisiana State's going to play Arkansas, and we know that Arkansas is an actual trash fire. So they're probably going to put up a bunch of points on that squad. And when it comes to 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's about getting into the playoff. Yes, you would want to be the 1 or the 2 seed because you get to go play closer to home depending on what the bowl situation is, right? But I think Ohio State's going to be sitting pretty. I still think it's going to be Ohio State and Clemson in the national championship. And Ohio State still has an opportunity to put together the kind of season that not only wins them a national championship, but has them in the conversation for the best football team of all time. They won't get there, but you understand what I'm getting at. All right, that is it for me. Deuces.